Greetings, Free Crunchers! In this video we are going to download a file from the web, a data file. We're going to put that data file on a folder on the computer. Then we're going to read that file into R, and we're going to crunch some simple stats, and that's all we're going to do. Okay, so the object of this video is to learn how to read a data file into R. Okay, it's really not about crunching stats. We'll do a little bit more of that later. We'll crunch some stats just because it's fun, but the real object is to read a data file into R. In this case, I'm using RStudio. You can do this in R if you prefer. Okay, so let's go to the data file. In the description of this video, down below, you'll see a URL or a link, okay, a link to the data file. Copy and paste that in. You'll torture yourself if you type it in. So copy and paste it in, and you can see I've done that. Okay, so you can see it's a GitHub. You can see it says GitHub user content, but just copy and paste that in. Okay, and you should see on your computer, and I hope you're playing along so that you can learn to do this for yourself. It's just a file. It's just text. Okay, this is a special type of file called a .csv file, and we'll see that in a minute. It's a common way to share data among users and to read it into R. Okay, you can make a .csv file with a spreadsheet and then save it as a .csv file, and then that's how you can read it later into R. Okay, there's other ways to read files into R, but this is one of the most basic ways. Okay, so let's take a look at this file if you haven't done this before. You can see the top row gives the names. So the top row is very special because it gives the names to 3 variables that we want to read into our data file. So the first variable is states. Okay, and you can see that as you start to read down the left-hand side of the file, you can see a list of states. Okay, and then what you can see is the state. That variable, the state variable, is then separated by a comma, and you can see that's why it's called a comma separated file, a CSV file. Okay, and then the next variable we're going to read in is pcrime, which is short for property crime. All right. In the future, I might not use capital letters. R is capital sensitive, so maybe that's something I regret at this point. Maybe I could have used them all lowercase, but note that P, it's pcrime for, okay, and that's a capital or a P, okay. And then you can see the second field after the first comma, every row, okay, the second field after the first comma is the property crime rate for that state. I believe this data was 2016. It was a long time ago that I built this, and I just got it off the web. I think it was from the Census Bureau. But anyway, let's go forward. The next one is then the unemployment rate. So after the second comma in every row is the third field, and that is the unemployment rate for each state. So that's a comma separated value file. Okay, and there again, you can make these in spreadsheets. We'll talk about later. You could have made this in a text file. You could have used Microsoft Word to build this, so you've got the idea. You can use this with lots of tools, and then as long as you save it as a text file and the extension is .csv and it follows that convention that I just mentioned, you can build these files. Okay, so I'm going to save the page as. Now I'm in Firefox, so I just right-clicked and the menu came up, Save As. I'm pretty sure other web browsers will have the same menu. But one way or the other, we need to save the file. And I'm going to save it to the computer folder called FreeCrunch. Okay, that's going to be the folder I'm going to save the files for this channel. And I'm going to go ahead and save it. It's going to say that it's already there. I'm going to say replace. For you, you'll save it for the first time. Okay, so notice we just saved the file to the folder on our computer. Okay, the next step is to tell R that where that file is. Okay, so how can we do that? You can You can use the command line on the console in RStudio to set the working directory. Okay, now how you do that, the command line way to do that will be a little bit different depending on whether you're in Windows or whether you're in a Mac, okay, or whether you're in Linux. Just a little bit different. It's the only place I really see that the OS specific environment you're in is a little bit different. Okay, so if you want to use the command line to set the working directory, I encourage you to go watch the videos I made about how to set the working directory in the Mac, how to set the working directory in Windows, how to set the working directory in Linux, okay? Specific, and definitely if you're in the R environment, okay? I'm going to assume you know how to set the working directory, but I'm going to have to do it to get this tutorial going. So I'm going to set the working directory in my RStudio session. I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to find that folder, FreeCrunch. There it is. I'm going to open that. Okay, and again, I know I'm going fast, but I have videos on how to set the working directory. So if you aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, definitely watch those videos about how to set the working directory. They're only 5 minutes long, and they're simple ideas, but if you don't set the working directory where you know and R knows where this data file is stored, you'll have trouble. So you can see in Linux, and this is also will work on a Mac, that's the form anyways of how to set the working directory. Okay, so that's anyways, but I used the mouse example. All right, we're all ready to go at this point. If you want to look at what's in the working directory, there it is, the state's pcrime unemployment. So let's read that file in. So the way to do that is, if you can see on the bottom left, I'm typing in, I typed in this command read.csv, and then it auto-completed a pair of parentheses, a left and a right facing parentheses, and it's empty. I want to put the argument to that command in those parentheses, and it's pretty nice. I lucked out. It came up with a little help menu that I can see. Okay, but all right. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read CSV, and it's going to be states. And I think at this point, you see, I just typed in states, and I'm just kind of, my eye is over here. I'm reading. That's the name of the file, and then I'm typing it over here, and it's in the quotes. And then, wow, how did that happen? I pressed the tab key. Okay, everybody, if you're doing this for the first time, really let that sink in. The magic of the tab key. A lot of people, wish that R was mouse-driven, and I think that's because they don't know there's a few magic things you can do, like use the tab key, that makes the typing a lot easier. So when I press the tab key, so there it is, state, or I started typing state. I'm not going to type that all out. If you look over here, that's pretty lengthy, and there's a high risk that I mistype something, and it's got some capital case, uppercase letters in there. It looks pretty picky. So I don't want to type that all out. I'm going to press the tab key, and it auto-completes it. In other words, R was smart enough to look in your working directory and figure out that once you started to type STAT, there's only one file in there. So it has. So then I press the tab button key, and it auto-completed it. Now let's go ahead and just do that. It's going to read it to the screen, which is I don't know. It is what it is. I can't do anything because it just read it to the screen. But I thought I would just do that first, one thing at a time. You can see that it did read the file. You can see that it read the file. It's presented a little bit more nicely than it was on the web page because it didn't show us the comma anymore. It's assuming it's in the background. It's just organizing it with the columns. Okay, and you can clearly see it looks more like a spreadsheet. It's not a spreadsheet, but it looks more kind of like that table form. Okay, and you can see that the top is the name of the data the variable names. Okay, so it came in pretty nice. So it's working pretty good. The only problem, you know, at this point too, if you wanted to look through your data and make sure it matched the values from the website, it's a good idea too. I wouldn't go through all 51, it's time consuming, but you know what I might do, and I'm not going to because I'm confident this is fine, but I might, you know, here, check Utah and make sure the values for Utah in this R file are the same that we saw on the website. I might check a couple more and then say, okay, it looks like it got read in well. Okay. All right, so, but it's not very useful. It just printed it to the screen. I can't access it. And so we want to have a file in our console, or not in our console, in our environment. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to retype, and this is the tab key was the first trick, so the autocomplete using the tab key. The second key, the second trick that really helps, I don't know if the camera's getting this, I hope it is. If not, it's the arrow up key on your keyboard. And my keyboard, it's over on the bottom right. I'm going to press that arrow up key, and you see it returned that code that I just ran. Okay, and I want to just edit it now. So this is a trick. You know, a lot of people again grumble that it's not mouse driven, but if you use these tricks, the autocomplete and the arrow up to return code that you know works, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm not going to type that again. I know it works. But what I want to do now is I want to this time read that into a data object inside of R. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to type it as crime.dta. You could name it anything, but DTA is a description for me that tells me it's a data file. You know, maybe to make it more explicit, we could say crime.data. How about that? Okay, and there it is. And this time it did not print it to the screen because it wrote all of that to what they call as a data frame in R. Okay, now if I want to, you know, I could tell R to print out all of the, you see what I did there? I'm going to arrow up this time, okay, and I'm just going to, there's crime.dta, okay, and it just prints it to the screen. So if you wanted to, this we could do an ls. ls is list, and short for list. It means list. It means list out the data objects that you have inside your R environment, and you can see that crime.dta is in the R environment. Okay. Now, if you're in RStudio, an option you can see, if you go into environment, it starts keeping track of the stuff that you build as you crunch your stats. Okay. Let's see over here. Oh, maybe I won't fool around at this point. Okay. I wanted to see if I could look at the data. Well, I think if we click it like that, do you see what I did? I clicked crime.data, and it came up over here. And you can browse it as a spreadsheet. Now, if you really want to do spreadsheet work, you should just export this as a spreadsheet, which I'll show you how to do in a separate video, and then work in a spreadsheet. You know, R is not a spreadsheet. Okay, do spreadsheet work in a spreadsheet. But this is kind of nice if you want to do something, you know, really kind of browse to the data. That's an option, and that will not be available if you're in R. That's an RStudio option. Okay, so anyways, I'm sorry, it won't be available through the way that I did this here. There is a view crime.data command. You can see it right down here, and also another command called edit crime.data in R that you can browse it in that website format. But that's for another day. We have this data file we have in our R session. What can we do with it? Well, we can crunch stats with it. Let's take a peek at the names of the variables in crime.dta, crime.data. Okay, and you can see that's how. I hope you take notes on all of these things. These are the basic things that you do if you want to look at the the names of the variables in a data frame. You use that a names command. Okay. Now, what if I wanted to access those data files? There's a couple ways. We could try. Okay, and then this little $sign. Okay, so it's crime.data. That's telling R to use that data object or that data frame, and then the $sign is the extender that says work with this variable, this specific variable in that data frame. Okay, and it listed them all out. Okay, and if you go back, which we can, you'll see that the first value in the data frame, let's look at when we printed it to the screen, the first value for pcrime was 1881. See that? Okay, and let's look at the last value. The last value for pcrime was 5105. So when I printed it out this way, you can see the last value is indeed 5105 and the first value is 1881. So, you know, that's how you can get at the variables that are in the data frame. Okay, let's see, what else could we do? I'm going to arrow up. I'm not going to retype things that I know work. And I'm going to say mean. What if I want to find the mean of pcrime? Okay, now R really starts to be pretty cool, because there's the mean of property crime for the data that we read in. Okay, what if we say to ourselves, what were some of the names, other names of the other variables? Forget now, right? Okay, so I say names, crime.data. Oh, unemployment. What's the mean for the unemployment rate? Okay, so we could just, again, you can see I didn't retype everything. I used the arrow up key, found that code that I know works, and now, but I don't want to do property crime again. Okay, I want to just do unemployment because that's my new question, right? What was the mean of unemployment? Okay, so you can see where this is going. If I wanted to find the standard deviation of unemployment, again, how did that text appear so rapidly down in the bottom left? I used the arrow up key, and then I went over and said, oh, if I want to find the standard deviation. Okay, all right, so you can see you can get lots of stats. Now I'm going to stop there with the stats. We'll talk more about all the gee whiz stats you can get out of R. You can see, but that's how you access the variables. That's how you read it in. Now, one thing you might say is, I don't like typing this crime dot every time and then typing in the variable name. That was a lot of extra typing. Is there a way that I could just type in pcrime or type in unemployment and skip this part? Okay. Is there a way? Okay. Yes, there is. Okay. And that's called attaching the data frame. Okay. What we're doing is we're moving the data frame into its first slot of search as it goes through. Okay. And so if we say attach crime.dta, crime.data. Okay, what R is saying is, if I tell you to get a variable, look in crime.data, okay, and then we can say, let's see how that works. Okay, we can say mean pcrime, okay, and there. All right, so that gives you a little shortcut if you have a lot of variables in a data frame and you're going to be playing around with it a little bit and you don't want to type out the data frame's name and then that $sign. You just want to type out variable names. You know, that's a nice handy way to do it. Let's see, so we've done you know, some basic things in this. Let's see what else. We're not going to crunch too much stats. We're almost done here. We read in some data and we're crunching some stats. If I wanted to make a histogram, and I'm not going to spend too much time because that would take us a little bit off the topic of the video, but I'll make another video about how to make some graphs in R, some simple graphs. But you can see there's a histogram of pcrime, not a great histogram, and I probably have my head in the way because of the way it's set up, but you can, a histogram of pcrime came up. It's not too bad, but you know, we would want to make it a little bit better, give it a nicer title like histogram of property crime rates, and so forth. So we would, if we were doing this professionally, we would want to edit this, and I'll show you how to do that in a future video. But you can see, we read in some data, and we have found the mean of two variables. We found the standard deviation of one of the variables. You can experiment if you want to. If you want to get the standard deviation for the variable that we didn't get the standard deviation. Okay, so we got the standard deviation of unemployment. Just for completeness, you can see I just used that arrow key to go back to the successful code, and this time we'll change that to P crime. And so we've got a lot of the basic statistics here, and we've got a histogram of P crime there. If we wanted to get a quick histogram of unemployment, let me break this for a minute, and I'm using the arrow up key. Oh, there's HIST, short for histogram for P crime, and then HIST short for unemployment if we wanted to do that. Again, I use the tab autocomplete there. Okay, and there's our quick histogram of unemployment again, which would have to be dressed up a little bit if we were going to make something professional. But for a quick a quick peek at the data, you can see that was really simple. All right, so I'm already starting to have fun and do things in stats things in our studio, and I'm tempted to keep going, but that's off topic. I'm already a little bit off topic. The only thing we were supposed to be doing in this video was to read in your data file. So that's it. So we could just exit at this point. So let's say quit, like that, and save the working directory. Now, since we set the working directory, which is nice, is it's going to save our data to this FreeCrunch file, and we'll make another video later about how to access that. But there we go, and I'm going to sign off. So we are done. We read in some data. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.